Who's in and who's out? It's a big question that Paul is grappling with in the book of Galatians. And the more I read the New Testament, the more I'm convinced that so much of it has this question as an echo, as a backdrop. It's a serious debate and point of contention for years in the early church. And can I tell you one fact about this first century, about the cultural history of the early church that has opened my eyes to this debate? It's about two rabbis, Jewish rabbis named Shammai and Hillel, who argue about one issue, about the inclusion of the Gentiles. Before Jesus ever came on the scene, before the church was ever a thing, the Jewish people were having this debate. What do we do when Gentiles decide they want to worship the God of Israel? How do we treat them? What do we believe is available to them? And Shammai and Hillel were on opposing sides of this debate. Shammai and his followers argued that in order to be set right before God, Gentiles must become Jewish. They must convert to Judaism. No ifs, ands, or buts. Circumcision, observe the Sabbath, follow the Torah, eat kosher, all of it. Hillel was considered to have really newfangled ideas. He was on the other side, and he said, I actually think that Gentiles can be set right before God, to be exonerated and justified before him just by having faith. But when it comes to being members of his kingdom and a part of his family, well, that's just for the Jews. You have to convert for that. So that's the debate. These are the two sides. Today we're reading Acts 15, where the early church really decides to work this out. They are going to come to a conclusion and seek out the truth of this matter. And they argue. It's honest, and it's messy, and it's spirit-led. And they come out with a scandalous conclusion that would have shocked both Shammai and Hillel, which is this: Gentiles are not just justified, but welcomed in as sons and daughters of God, full heirs to the kingdom and recipients of all of his promises, just by grace through faith. Just faith. Can you see how that is so much farther than even Hillel had ever gone? Can you see why this would feel radical to so many of these early Jewish Christians? They had never even thought that God's grace would be that big. This expansive, it's more than they would have hoped or dreamed or imagined. And I wonder, as you read today in Acts 15 about their cultural differences and arguments, what it might have to say about us and ours. What biases might the Spirit be working on in our hearts? Who are the people who are the Gentiles to us, right? It's not really a Jewish Gentile question anymore, but who's that group that's wildly different, who you think is dead wrong, that you have to really push yourself to consider God's grace is big enough for both of us to be in his family? Or maybe you feel like the outcast. What is it like to read this passage and be encouraged that God's grace, it really is that big. It really is that wide. I just have a sneaking suspicion that the gospel still challenges us today to consider who's in, who belongs, and how do we welcome them in, and are we basing our community on grace or something else? Because it's beautiful and it's challenging, and I would also guess that the way forward for us with people that we don't like and we disagree with involves a lot of honest, messy, Spirit-led conversations. The truth of the gospel is so much more than they ever could have dreamed of. More than I could have ever dreamed of. It's beautiful, and it's scandalous, and it's challenging. Because we're all welcomed in as sons and daughters and heirs by grace through faith. Full stop. Take care, friends.